trying to meet up and trying to get their stocks for AstraZeneca, not happening in several cases. So for them, the way forward was to try and mix them. Some countries have successfully managed to do that. And this mix and match is what we will explore on today's program. Let's get into our explainer. As India faces the vaccine shortage, is mix and match of vaccines the way forward? Is it safe? Is it effective? Will a mix and match work in a country like ours, which already has several underlying challenges? For now, several countries across the globe are mixing vaccines, trying to tackle global supply constraints. When faced with shortage of one vaccine, they decided instead of halting the entire program and wait for supply, vaccination should continue, but with a different vaccine. For example, when out of stock for AstraZeneca, several countries in Europe are now advising younger people previously given the vaccine as the first dose to receive an alternative vaccine as their second dose. Most commonly, the mRNA vaccine, such as Pfizer, which is being seen mixed with AstraZeneca. So will India take a cue from them? Let's take a look at this in detail on what exactly these countries are doing. We'll go country by country and also look at what combination so far seems to have worked for them. First country that we're looking at, United Kingdom. Now, Britain in January allowed people to be given a different vaccine for a second dose on extremely rare occasions. For example, if the vaccine was out of stock. The first findings of the Oxford University-led study released on not very long ago, actually on the 12th of May, found that people who received Pfizer's vaccine followed by a dose of AstraZeneca or vice versa were more likely to report mild to moderate common post-vaccination symptoms that if they receive two vaccines of the same type. Meaning if you mix, the post-vaccination complications or side effects could be a little more. So this is already happening in UK, mind you, and it's not just Pfizer and AstraZeneca. UK at this point is undergoing a trial of mixing and matching the Novavax and test if that can also work as an additional dose. United States, let's look at that. US has allowed the mix and match in January itself, and the US Center for Disease Control and Prevention gave its clearance of allowing Pfizer and Moderna shots to come together with a gap of 28 days. But again, they said in exceptional situations. Canada recently allowed mix and match. First dose of AstraZeneca vaccine with the second dose of either Pfizer or Moderna. They have also allowed mixing of Pfizer and Moderna as well, taken as the first or second dose. Let's look at Finland. Last month, they cleared vaccine cocktail, but allowed only for those below 65. Those who have got the first dose of AstraZeneca can get a different second shot. France, the top health advisory body there, also allowed this last month, recommending only for people under 55. They rejected, that were injected, with AstraZeneca first should receive the second dose with a messenger RNA vaccine. Norway is doing the same, offering those who have received the first dose of AstraZeneca to take another one of mRNA. Spain allowed also mix and match, but only below 60. Those who got AstraZeneca as the first shot can take Pfizer as the second shot. Sweden allowed this for those below 65. Again, AstraZeneca this time mixed with any other vaccine for them. China, at the moment, considering this. They say that they are formally considering the mixing of vaccines right now, and those doses developed with different technologies, but their motive here is not shortage, but they're trying to test if their efficacy actually becomes better with the mixing of the two shots. Let's look at Ireland, where at the moment they're reviewing the possibility of mixing AstraZeneca with, again, a mRNA vaccine. Russia at the moment is, taking in lots of caution. They have put on hold approval in the country of clinical trials combining AstraZeneca with Sputnik V. After the committee there said that they needed more data really to go ahead with this. South Korea is currently running a mix and match trial as well, mixing AstraZeneca with Pfizer and other drug makers. But the key question, what's happening in India? Will India be exploring this option? Well, India is also likely to begin testing the option of mix and match under the empowered group under immunization. They're exploring this, and this is set to begin, we are hearing from sources, in the next few weeks. The testing is likely to be carried out on not just the 3 vaccines currently available in India, that is the Bharat Biotech Covaxin, Covishield and Sputnik, but also with 6 other vaccines which are in the pipeline. Which are those? Let's bring you that. Serum Institute's Covovax in the pipeline. Biological E's Corbevax also in the pipeline. Then there is Zycov-D in the pipeline. Genova's mRNA vaccine as well. Johnson & Johnson in the pipeline. And then there is Bharat Biotech's nasal vaccine as well, which is in the pipeline. And remember, this is coming on a day when Pfizer has become one step closer at least to try and get it cleared. So that's where India stands at this point vis-a-vis the world, which is exploring this mix and match of vaccines. All right, having understood that, is India prepared for this? Is this an option we can explore? Let's find that out with our guests now. We are joining us on the program is Dr. Rajneesh Kapoor. He's the Vice Chairman at Medanta Hospital. We've got Sanjeev Krishna joining us. Professor Krishna joins us from the St. George's University of London. We've got Dr. Rakesh Mishra with us, Senior Virologist, and Rachna Kocheria also back with us on the program. If I can begin by getting in a word from Professor Krishna over here, your thoughts on what this mix and match of cocktail means and how do you see this happening in India? My question really here is that, India already has a lot of underlying challenges. We are talking at a time when we've seen some mix-up happen between Covishield and Covaxin already, and this was by error in a place in one of the states here in the country. So is this something we should be exploring? Number one, that I want to understand from you. And number two, if you think the challenges are, the way things are in the country, it can happen.
Thanks for having me, Sonal. And thanks for that introduction also, which I thought was very comprehensive regarding the questions about vaccines. Now, just stepping back a little bit, why do we want vaccines for pandemics? We want vaccines really to give the maximum immune response as soon as possible, because that provides the best protection. That's the fundamental principle. How we get there is going to be constrained. And you mentioned some of the constraints. So supply of vaccines is critical, and it's very short, particularly in India, but this is a global problem that everyone, many countries are facing, especially those in lower middle income settings. So we need to be flexible in order to be able to generate immune responses quickly. And we also need to be safe, and we need to make sure that not only are the immune responses, effectively generated quickly, and that it's done safely, but that it's the combinations that we are discussing about mixing vaccines, that they're also well tolerated by the people who are experiencing it. So what does this mean? This means studies, and it means real care, looking out for these things. Final reason why you may want to mix vaccines is, of course, if one vaccine is found to have a liability, perhaps in a different age group, you've mentioned this yourself, the AstraZeneca one, then maybe you need to put the second dose, which is very necessary, especially with variants. You may need to put the second dose with a different kind of vaccine to minimize risks. So that's the overall kind of reasoning why you want to mix and to match.
All right. I'm glad you mentioned that. Let me bring in Dr. Mishra at this point. Dr. Mishra, the key question here is this arriving out of shortage purely, or this is coming from science? Do we have enough evidence to actually bank on this, or is this an act of desperation? That's what people want to know.
So what we are seeing in many other conditions, vaccine, the main part of the vaccine is not the making of the vaccine, but the trials. And that's what decides how good the vaccine is, how many doses to give, and what the gap between the two doses, all those things. And here we are trying one more thing, which is the interchangeability of the vaccine, whether it's good or not. So few things are clear. It's very, very clear that they are safe. Whether they will give more benefit or not, some indications are that they will. But I think in a country like India, I would go from the data. If there is a sufficient number, if there is a real world data or a trial, real world will be because of the mistakes and so on, then we should consider this. But otherwise, I think we should go by what is time tested, data-based decision we should be taking and not doing too many experiments, particularly because, first of all, how many people we can give the first dose, because that is should be our target, to cover a large number of people and give them one dose and then try to see if they get the second dose. If there is very shortage of that vaccine, one more is available, then if data permits, I think we can allow. But my preference will be to go simple and let the data get collected, and only if there are proper solid basis, then we should go for this. Otherwise, this is experimentation. Now, whether we go for a booster of another vaccine, variant-specific vaccine, that question will come probably after a few months. And there, I think probably then the mRNA-based vaccine will be more effective because they are quicker to come into picture.
Right.
But at the moment, I think I will wait for the data before saying that to go and I start mixing and matching. It's too much of uncertainty there.
Okay, Dr. Mishra, going the old school way now, not ready to mix and match just yet. Let me bring in Dr. Rachna Kapoor at this point. You know, it's fascinating, Dr. Rachna, that if you look at a vaccine like Sputnik, what's really fascinating here is that Sputnik, both their doses have two different formulas. So in a way, it's a mix and match as well. Sputnik also tried and tested, throughout the world, and we're still waiting for clearances there. But they talk about, at least their claims are, that their efficacy at this point is really high, one of the top 3 in the world at this point. And if that's allowed, then what exactly is a hang-up with mix and match?
Hi, Sonal. Thank you for having me back. I agree, as the previous 2 panelists said, and Dr. Mishra as well, that we need the science for this. We need the studies to happen. And right now, we are sort of piggybacking on Western data. But I'm very glad to hear that our own studies are starting soon, and they should be now. Besides just the vaccine studies that we should be having in any case, to see how it's panning out in our own country with our own population. So the mixing and matching definitely needs data. And I think that is achievable rather soon, because the vaccine numbers, lakhs and lakhs, crores are being vaccinated daily in this country. So to reach a certain number of what we call the power of the study, to be able to give us valid data that can be used in the real world, can be achieved fairly quickly. And I think it's a good way to go for us to collect our own and contribute to science globally as well.
All right. So waiting for more data, says Dr. Rachna Kapoor. Let me get in Dr. Kapoor at this point. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously. So I think it has come up clearly that in India, the impetus could be logistics, not the science, not, trying various combinations. But we are a vast country, and still, 4 or 5% of inoculations, we are far behind the way we should have been. So I think in that scenario, if we want to really rapidly vaccinate our people, this may be a way forward. And now we have studies behind us. The Spanish study clearly proves that Pfizer after Astra is safe. And there is one study going on in UK also, which is ongoing, and that also is testing Pfizer, Astra, and Novavax combinations. And you yourself mentioned Sputnik is kind of a vaccine which involves 2 different strategies. So I think safety is not a concern. There may be very rare side effects, in people, which we need to watch. In India, I think the stage is set where we should try this out and procure the data simultaneously.
But on the issue of side effects, it is to be noted here that all the studies found that the mixing and matching of vaccines actually led to more side effects post-vaccination. And if I can go back to Dr. Mishra on this point. Dr. Mishra, on the issue of Sputnik, I saw you shake your head on that one. What are your views on sort of mixing these vaccines? And if I can ask you this, a lot of studies at this point in China, specifically doing a study to see if the mixing of vaccines can actually improve efficacy. This is something that, I spoke with the head of Sputnik as well some time ago on the program, and he said he's now actually working with AstraZeneca to try and improve their efficacy. He also said that Johnson & Johnson seems, according to them at least, just the first shot. Johnson & Johnson, which is a one-dose vaccine, according to them, it's only the first shot of Sputnik V. So it's kind of the same formulas. What is your hang-up over here? What are you worried about?
So I'm not against any experimentation. Science goes with experiment, and we should try something which is safe for people to do, and that there's no question that these vaccines are safe. Now, what kind of combination, what kind of interchangeability will give more effect, those things. So I am saying that we need data before we can start implementing to our people.
Okay.
The Sputnik, you said Sputnik is actually not a mix and match. Sputnik is first dose is something. In both the doses, the heart of the vaccine, the protein or the antigen part of this thing is the same. It's just the packet in which this antigen is served to the body is different, just to avoid, just to create more kind of immune response to that. That is not technically a different vaccine. It's just that some part is different in that. And by other vaccines, they have many things different.
Could you explain that with an example? Because a lot of combination that we've seen have been both being mRNA vaccines, and they seem to be working together.
So in the vaccines, one part is the antigen, which is either mRNA, which will get translated into body, make many copies of protein, and that will serve as a virus signature, and our immune response will react against that. But this mRNA is put into an envelope and given in the body, and that part is different. Same thing happens to the Sputnik or AstraZeneca. There, we are putting a DNA component of this, which is covered in a viral or some kind of dysfunctional virus thing.
Okay.
Like Sputnik is a adenovirus. The first dose and second dose are slightly different, but inside material is the same. So these are all different kinds of formula in which what we call as adjuvant in which vaccine is given.
Sure.
So those are the things that should be tried. What will create more trigger into the, finally speaking, all the vaccine in there are giving some antigen, and the other Bharat Biotech give an entire virus that if you want, and they should not be a big deal. But these are the studies that are done very carefully with large number of people, tell what is the best suited for large number of people. And we should implement only that. Rest, what we are talking in the experimentation, we should try all possible combination, and whatever is best, we should use that.
Okay, I have to slip into a break, but I want to quickly get in a word from Professor Krishna before I do that. On the issue of efficacy actually improving with the combination, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think there are many points. I mean, the first point is that I personally said in January we shouldn't just give one dose of vaccine and delay the second dose. And here I must respectfully disagree with my colleague, Professor Mishra, because I think we really do need two doses, especially as variants are emerging. And we said that in January, and now the UK government is shortening the lengthened dose schedule. The efficacy, according to the Spanish study that was mentioned, unpublished data in a press release, do suggest that the efficacy is very good when you mix, let's say, AZ followed by an mRNA vaccine. So a final point I'd make, because this is really important, is if you've had an infection before, certainly with some vaccines, that is when one dose may be acting as a booster. And that would be a great vaccine-saving strategy. Check somebody's had the infection with antibodies, use one dose, don't worry too much about the second dose. In the other vulnerable groups, get that second dose in quickly so that they're maximally protected. That's what I would suggest at this stage. And let's not be too shy. Let's not be too shy about taking data from other countries, providing the studies are well carried out. Let's move quickly and use the maximum information.